See if hopefully you can hear me. Yeah, my voice is pretty loud, so I think the whole exhibition will hear me. But my name is Kyle Friedman. I'm the market segment manager for Jiffy Products International. We have a great panel today that's been organized by the CA Alliance, so very grateful for Tom and that organization for putting this on within Farming Forward. I will also be our moderator as well as on the panel, so I get to wear two hats, but we should have a really interesting conversation. Four of us come from very different segments of CEA, and so hopefully we'll be able to cover a lot of different interesting points within sustainability. We're going to kind of start off, each of us is just going to give a little bit of an overview of our organization and some of the key points that we focus on, initiatives, goals that we have within sustainability. So we'll go through the four of us to give you a little bit of a background framework, and then we'll dig into some more conversation. And then certainly towards the end, would love to get some questions and input from the audience. If you have specific questions for each of us individually or just sustainability within controlled environment ag, we would be happy to address some of that, some of those questions and information. So you can go ahead and put the next slides up. All right, so we're good to go. So again, as I mentioned, my name is Kyle Friedman, the segment manager for Controlled Environment Ag for Jiffy Products International. See if this works. A little bit about Jiffy's values. I don't want to go too much into this, but when it comes to sustainability, and Jiffy being a large global international substrate provider, sustainability in our industry is changing a lot, and a lot of our growers are really driving a lot of that. And so Jiffy has tried to be really innovative and flexible and solutions driven so that we can adapt our products to meet the needs of CA growers and other industry partners. So if you're not familiar with Jiffy, again, horticultural substrate provider based in the Netherlands. We have over 8 different production sites globally, and we focus on harvesting and supply chain of raw materials for substrates. So that certainly includes peat, that includes coconut coir, as well as some other materials and fibers that I'll get into. And we focus on kind of the whole segment of growing. So all the way from propagation of young plants to cultivation and production in indoor settings, all the way from greenhouses to more higher tech vertical farming systems. So for us, we're all really familiar with kind of ESG reporting and different elements of environmental, social, and governance. Jiffy is really focused on sustainability initiatives that hit some of those environmental goals, which makes sense because we're sourcing raw materials for substrate, and so directly related to the environment, whether it comes to the material we're harvesting, how we manage those practices, things like that. So I'm kind of going to highlight different areas that we've worked on within the environment and our products to push sustainability forward. So the main focus of our sustainability goals, we've kind of developed a 5-year program to look at different ways of reducing plastic. So that's obviously a huge component for a lot of us in the industry, substrate all the way to retailers, right? We're really trying to minimize plastic use and have that end up within the environment in different systems. And so we focus on that, and I'll talk a little bit about that. Increasing the proportion of sustainable materials within the products we offer. Being a substrate and growing media company, this is probably one of the most important for us because there's different elements of materials that we use that can be more sustainable or less sustainable, and it really depends on the market you're in, and we'll probably talk a good bit about peat, but that's one example of a material that highly makes up growing media industry that we're seeing a lot of shift in globally. So reducing energy use, water use, CO2 emissions, something that we focus on because we have production facilities. I think my colleagues are probably going to touch a lot on those points based on their own companies and what they do. And then just contributing to the circular economy. And so there's components of Jiffy with recycling, packaging, substrate bags, things like that we can focus on. And then our different areas of sustainability and what we're focusing on really connect to some of the sustainable development goals. So diving in a little bit more detail briefly on just our raw materials. So a lot of what we have in our portfolio is peat, both from Europe as well as Canada. And as we do see some policy shifts away from peat, it's going to take quite some time for us to see that transition happen. As we're making that transition, there have been a lot of really good programs established to increase the way that peat is harvested, the way it's produced, the way it's sourced. And so a couple different examples of programs that I think are really good to highlight is the Responsibly Produced Peat certification as well as Veriflora. And we've been able to increase the amount of substrate that we supply based on those certifications and being able to really focus on ecological restoration of peat bogs and increase that time that those can be restored. A huge topic certainly within CEA is really focusing on alternative fibers and materials that can be sourced locally and are more sustainable, more renewable. Wood fiber is a big area because that can be sourced all over and an element that Jiffy focuses on, as well as some other natural organic materials that are in our R&D process that will become available commercially soon. Plastics, thinking about a substrate company, you might not think there's elements of plastic, but there can be. And for Jiffy, we used to have in our pellets and grow blocks, which you see on the top right for younger plant propagation, started in polyethylene netting and don't require containers. We've moved to polylactic acid, which is a corn resin that's fully compostable and biodegradable. And so that's one way that we've addressed reduction in plastic use. And then also just being able to use post-consumer recycled plastic, and that's kind of an area that we're expanding into and focusing on more. So reduction in production and logistics, focusing on energy, CO2 emissions. So I said we have about 8 different production facilities globally. It's been a little bit more challenging for us to address sustainability and certainly energy use in some of those facilities. But we have been successful in a couple areas. In New Brunswick, Canada, we have a facility that we've been able to purchase renewable electricity from and really reduce the amount of CO2 annually that's being consumed from that facility. And then we made a huge step. We have a production facility in Sri Lanka, which is where a lot of our coconut substrate comes from. And that production facility has been completely transitioned to solar, and we've been able to supply about 35% of our energy from that site. So these are just a couple of different areas that I wanted to highlight that Jiffy is really focused on. We'll talk more about it in our discussion. If you want to get more information on our sustainability report and kind of dig into the details, you could scan that QR code and get some more information. We should have our 2023 report out soon. This is from 2022. And so you'll see some updates there. But with that being said, I'll wrap up my component. I think we're going to move to Jack next, and he'll talk a little bit about LettUS Grow. If you can put up the next slide deck. Yeah.
Yeah. Great. So hopefully these should be reasonably brief slides. I thought I'd start off just by describing what we actually do, because a little bit less well known than Jiffy plugs. So we'll go with I'll try and do my best to explain that, and then I'll kind of focus on a few bullet points that we've been looking at in terms of sustainability as a irrigation supplier within glasshouse, polytunnel, vertical farming industries. So looking at LettUS Grow itself, we're a technology provider, been running since about 2015. Started off in vertical farming, but moved on to greenhouse production systems as kind of the majority of our focus. We're a team of around 30 people. We've got a mixture of plant scientists, technology developers. I'm a plant scientist myself. And effectively what we do is we design aeroponic systems, which is where you irrigate with an aerosol, with a mist, onto plant roots to remove certain limiting factors to root growth that you get within certain hydroponic systems. We tend to work through licensing to major technology partners, so the greenhouse constructors, the vertical farming constructors of this world, to allow them to offer aeroponic benches and hydroponic benches that sit right next to each other and allow you to kind of optimize your production systems for different plant requirements. As I said, many projects delivered around the UK and EU, and actually the majority of that is, as I said, with these partners. And this actually invites some quite interesting sustainability questions as to how do you maintain good ethical outcomes when you're only licensing into a supply chain and not controlling all that production yourself. So I think it's one thing that I'd like to touch on through the rest of this presentation. Now, I don't know if this video will play, it may or may not, but what I was hoping to use it to turn the sound up. So this is one of our aeroponic rolling benches. You'll see here. So basically you have the ultrasonics that sit underneath the water body within a normal standing kind of M-flood rolling bench. That means you can get the same bench into a kind of an M-flood envelope, roll it into your glass house, and it rolls down a power rail. So we install that under the benches. And what that means is that if you've already got a glass house, you don't need to tear anything out. You can roll this straight in and you can gain those kind of higher productivity benefits in many cases. And actually this kind of flexibility. So you can have this system growing things that need a bigger root zone. You can have things that are growing well in your ebb and flood bench sitting right next to each other. So you need to remove minimal infrastructure to get the benefits of basically both irrigation methods. So by design, this is a kind of a low kind of friction way of bringing new irrigation into existing glasshouse projects. And it's something that we work very closely with greenhouse manufacturers on to make sure that we're tying directly into their existing production systems. This is particularly good for leafy greens, propagation in a gully format, which is also covered by our patents, very good for strawberry growth as well. And that's kind of our main areas of focus at this point in time. I wasn't sure how loud the music would be when I put this on, so yeah, hopefully you can hear me. But the main things that I wanted to touch on today is actually how does this impact our kind of sustainability reporting, sustainability strategy, and how does that fit with our business model? So when I co-founded this company about 8 years ago, one of the key things that we wanted to do was to bake that sustainability strategy right into the business strategy. We need to get the incentive structures need to be aligned so that when we make money, we also make positive impact for our grower partners. So fundamentally how we operate, as I said, we license, we don't build new manufacturing facilities, we work with existing partners to make sure this is easy to retrofit. And we fundamentally, the only thing we really control that's a physical product is the atomizers that go into that supply chain. So our real design challenge is actually how do you build an atomizer that's easy to repair, not to just replace and throw away, and which is fundamentally driven by reducing energy consumption and increasing yield. So we need to have all those incentives aligned within our business so that when we make money, we also drive good performance in those key kind of areas. So it'd be something that we can touch on in the panel discussion. But yeah, wanted to just show you what we do and hopefully highlight a few areas of focus for me as one of the people running the business.
Hi, Joachim Ritterborn from Swegreen. Swegreen is an ag tech company specialized in vertical farming with more than 100,000 research hours in our portfolio. It brings me great pride here today to affirm that we have efficiently addressed the sustainability issues involved in vertical farming. All those hours have led to 2 patents pending so far. Swegreen mainly provides in-store farming platforms, but we also have highly efficient solutions for real estate, restaurants, and hospitality. By placing our units inside existing infrastructure, we achieve almost zero transport and minimal energy consumption. To qualify for the premium floor space we get inside these facilities, our units must be profitable for our consumers, or for our customers, sorry. We accomplish this by guaranteeing that our units consistently deliver market-leading products. Our units, as you see here, does not only show a visual stunning appeal, but also leave a lasting impact, elevating the shopping experience and inspiring customers to spend more inside the stores. We have, as you see here, 3 different families. From the left, we got our smallest member in the Swegreen family. It's called Grow, and it delivers 20 to 30 plants today with minimum effort from the ones that manages it. In the middle, you see our best seller, Saga. It delivers 70 to 120 plants per day, from 8 to 12 hours weekly effort. And as you see, it takes basically no area at all inside the supermarkets. And our bigger units on the right, they grow from 300 to 200 plants every day, and the workload starts with 30 hours. So let's take a look inside. Swegreen business model, we call it farming as a service. That means that we provide the growing solutions suitable for the customers, any one of the 3 in the families you saw earlier. We provide them free of charge for the customer. We provide everything needed for production. We monitor the units 24/7. The customer does all the work, from sowing to harvest. To do that, they get a digital support system that leads the operators through every step on the way. So how do we make money? Swegreen charges a service fee for each individual plant. This business model adds to our sustainability. The value chain doesn't get any shorter than this. Straight from harvest to the shelves in the store, no middle hands. Below you can see traditional practices, how long the value chain actually could be. Swegreen's approach to sustainability goes through research and innovation. We have developed highly efficient cultivation systems and methods that optimize growth while minimizing resource efficiency. To confirm our performance, we conducted a life cycle assessment on our Saga family. This was led by Professor Michael Martin from the Swedish Environmental Institute, and the results, they came out fantastic. We use 1.3 liters per kilogram of edible produce. Electricity, we have 3.45 kilowatt hours per kilogram of edible. That's equal to 7 minutes in the shower for 1 kilogram. The yield, we grow 273 kilograms edible per square meter, and that's the grow area or the canopy area on a yearly base, 273 kilograms. And finally, the environmental footprint is 0.23 carbon dioxide equivalents per kilogram of edible. And if you want to relate that to anything, it equals 2 kilometers in a mid-sized car. If you want to get in contact with us, I have 2 colleagues here out in the audience, hands up, and or just drop us an email. Thank you.
Kalispera. Good evening. First of all, I would like to thank for the invitation CA Alliance and especially Kylie for the opportunity to introduce raised greenhouses as the only greenhouse that is thank you, that is exclusively heated with geothermal hot water. We are based in North Greece. We are a greenhouse that we produce tomatoes and cucumbers. Right now we are 26 hectares, and in our plans in 2026 we are going to be 33 hectares. We started that project in 2014 with 4 hectares, and gradually, till now, we have the biggest greenhouse without chimney. That is the big advantage for us because we adapted terms like sustainability and terms like life cycle analysis, EPD, CO2 emissions from the very first time. That was the advantage coming from the geothermal energy. To explain, it's very important for us that we have that field in North Greece, and the field is cover the needs for heating with a temperature of 60 degrees. In addition, we cover the needs of electricity by 35%. We are talking about hydroponics. That means that we have a reduction in water consumption of about 85%. And when we are talking about sustainability, we have also include our people. Right now, we have more than 250 people working with us. That's our products, and we are trying to cover a range of products, and the most important thing for us is that we are certified with Global Gap certifications. We were the first company in agricultural section all over the world that we have that GGN label, the B2C label, that it is adapted by Global Gap. We are certified by IFS. We have that certification, the add-on certification by Global Gap FSA. And because we have all that characteristics, we were able to make life cycle analysis and to have EPD and also sustainability reports starting from 2017. It is very important to understand that we developed that technology by ourselves. The geothermal hot water comes from the depth of 250 meters in a temperature of 60 degrees. We have a network for more than 10 kilometers of plastic pipes, that take the water from the boreholes to the greenhouse. And we cover exclusively the needs of heating by geothermal hot water. Thank you.
Make sure this works okay. So now we can move into the fun part in our discussion. So hopefully you got a taste a little bit of very different kinds of operations, right? Me coming from substrate technology to all the way to the grower side, and sustainability, we're all kind of interconnected, but it definitely impacts us differently. So I guess if we can start off talking just at a basic level, defining what sustainability means a little bit to each of us in our companies, because you know, using the word sustainable and sustainability, a lot of times we're talking about different things. It's hard to be on the same footing of how we can address that and what we're all working towards. So maybe just speaking a little bit about, you know, how we define sustainability and what that looks like for our organization at sort of a basic level.
Sure. Okay, okay, this works, that's good. So for me, it kind of categorizes into two areas. As an equipment supplier, obviously, we are one of the highest carbon things that someone's going to install if they're a grower. Your build of your glass house and your irrigation system is a lot of metal and plastic. And unfortunately, metal and plastic is never going to be net zero. So there's two categories I split things into. There's the embedded carbon, there's the embedded water and everything else that goes into the build of your facility, which obviously we have an impact on with our design. And then there is the embedded carbon and everything else that's embedded in your produce, which is very much under the grower's control, but we can enable that to go down. So when we look at our kind of impact on a scope 1, 2, and 3 perspective, I'm aware that I'm trying to affect those two things. There's the carbon embedded in our products, which come back to us through our scope 3 emissions. And then there's the carbon embedded in their produce that I'm trying to improve, but that won't ever come back to us through our scope 3 emissions. So it's a little bit altruistic because somebody else's carbon balance sheet is getting better because of us, but that's how I separate the two. Our product should reduce the carbon of the fresh produce by having better throughput or better efficiencies. But on the actual product side, we're just trying to make it as less bad as possible in terms of material selection and things like that.
Absolutely.
Okay, for Swegreen, sustainability, it's, as we said in the presentation, it's in our DNA. The core of our existence forces us to be as sustainable it gets in every point. So when it comes to water use, energy use, choice of material that goes into the farming, we always try to push it as far as this goes, and this work still continues. We need to do this because we're mainly based in the Nordics, and we are very environmentally concerned. So all our customers, the supermarkets, they try to benchmark us against others, which happens to be very hard because we use different metrics. I hope we get into this later.
We sure will.
But yeah, for sure, sustainability is in our mind every hour, and we keep dwelling into how to be better.
The same, just like Joachim, we have supermarkets. Our clients are basically supermarkets. 95% of our products go to the supermarkets. It was the huge advantage for us to be different in that case. When I first saw the carbon footprint on a product, it was, let's say, a sign for us that will be our difference and the huge advantage to see and add value in our products. When we first started that project in 2014, those terms wasn't so easy for us, and it wasn't so easy for the Greek market as well. Right now, all that things come so easy, and we are waiting to be accepted.
Awesome. So I feel like another big challenge that we all probably face is just trying to figure out what to focus on increasing sustainability, because there's so many different aspects of our businesses and the supply chain that we touch that can be areas that we push into, and it's really hard to obviously focus on everything. So how do you prioritize kind of which elements of your business that you want to focus on initiatives to actually increase sustainability, and sort of make that decision, and thinking about what you can do now and what you can do tomorrow? Sure, yeah, go ahead.
So I think for me, it starts with a life cycle assessment, right? So you need to know what you're looking at fundamentally from your product. You need to know what's actually going to make a difference. For us, for example, it's electricity, and it's material selection, particularly on our ultrasonic atomizers. Those things are going to make the most difference. They're actually what differentiate us to a hydroponic system. So the ability to repair our ultrasonics is absolutely critical to our impact. And the electricity, if I'm honest, like if we reduce the electricity going into our atomizers, we'll make money, our customers will make money, and the environment wins. So there's those 2 points are really key to us. On the upside, we do have the benefit of utilizing less growing media and enabling growers to grow more with less. So there are these upsides, but often that is contingent on a grower's decision, which is how it should be. So we tend to focus on what's totally in our control, which is the design side variables on electricity and the ultrasonics.
Yeah, I could just emphasize that a life cycle analysis is an eye-opener that actually tells you what has an impact in your business. So when we conducted our life cycle analysis, it kind of illuminated that from everything from the parts that go into our machines, and also all the way to the end of our product when it leaves the store. Obviously, growing indoors, you have to replace the sun with artificial lighting. So the electricity is a huge part of this sustainability issue. And actually, it turns out that even if you use the best lights, that has the biggest impact is where you source the electricity. So the residual mix of your country can totally ruin the business case or the final carbon dioxide equivalents from your product. But as you saw on the figures we presented, we are very well compatible to produce grown outdoors, since we replace the transports. So we just keep working on this.
You want to add something?
I was just going to jump in on that because I've been involved in vertical farming before. I think that's actually one of the things that limits the geographical placement of vertical farms. Unless your produce has been air freighted in, as it is in many of the Nordics or perhaps some of the Middle East, often the carbon equation doesn't make sense for a vertical farm. But it definitely can do if you're displacing that kind of produce. So yeah, you're right. The right energy mix and the right existing import balance, and it makes sense.
For fresh greenhouses, the priority is cultivation. And we are focused to minimize the impact of cultivation, even it is not indoor, which there is a huge advantage, all those things that you mentioned. We are trying to minimize the energy, which is our main priority right now. Geothermal hot water help us in that point. Also, we want to install new photovoltaic stations. We are in Greece. The sun is a huge business, let's say. And right now we cover only 35% of our energy needs, but we have a program to install new photovoltaic stations to cover almost, if it's possible, 100% of the energy. But we care about fertilizers, we care about even substrates, everything. We want to be count and to be sure that we will improve next year.
So, and we mentioned life cycle assessments because that's been a pretty important tool in a lot of our companies in establishing what's a priority, what we should focus on and work on. How often are you doing those life cycle assessments, or would you recommend doing those?
Yeah. When you start getting the results of your first life cycle analysis, then you kind of realize where you can do an impact. So I would recommend you don't need several of them. One is a very good start, and by getting those numbers, you also get the metrics on how to communicate your sustainability figures. It doesn't help that saying that we grow this and that per square meter if you don't measure over what period of time or something like that. So these academic numbers that you get from a life cycle analysis actually helps you to communicate. And if everyone could communicate their numbers with each other, that would actually help us to shape up, do better, and all our units will be more sustainable.
It's very important that all that numbers are certified from now on. And it must be clear that we have to make it even every year in order to see the improvements or any mistake. When we first make that LCA, and we tried to make the first report in 2017, even the norm wasn't so clear, and we saw the improvements year by year. And that helped us to improve ourselves. On the other hand, we have to make declarations because of that. We say that we are almost zero CO2. When we first said that, we were terrified because what is zero? 0.24, 0.14, what is almost zero? That was very strange for us, but if we have the figures, that will help us to improve ourselves.
Yeah, so the only thing I'd add, because I agree with both of those, I would draw a kind of distinction between your annual impact reporting and your life cycle assessment. So for me, I would only run a life cycle assessment at LettUS Grow when we've made a big design change, because the life cycle assessment is like an audit. It will tell you in detail everything that you need to now focus on post-design change. It would be a waste of money to do that every year, because you'd only see incremental changes. Then what you can do on an annual basis is kind of the compliance-based scope 1 to 3 reporting as a company, and that's useful for tracking how things change year to year. The LCA is more, for my eyes, a kind of a diagnostic and a design tool to inform where you should be focusing on in your business.
So certification came up, I think, in your comment, Efthymios, and I feel like that's something we all like to highlight and put on our slides, as you probably saw. How do you feel like certifications help your organization with communicating sustainability, with holding you accountable to the things that you're focused on doing?
Definitely for the company, it's very good to have all that things in our mind. But we have to put add value in our product. And I think that there are a lot of steps during the last 2 years, just after COVID, that the market seems to recognize that things. Hope next year to be a standard for benchmarking, and there are some countries that they have the mentality to recognize that things. Hope to see all of them to follow.
Yeah. When it comes to certifications, we're kind of a little bit dubious to that. because when you grow without soil in hydroponics, you cannot certify it as organic. But we have fun about it and say that our produce is beyond organic, but doesn't really say anything what it is. But I don't really know if there any value to those certifications anymore, because a customer survey that we did kind of tells that the customer first look at where is the produce coming from, and secondly they want to know that it's produced without any chemicals. So that's the top two. And yeah, so
which are kind of proxies for sustainability, not actual sustainability. So yeah, I think we could probably flag that that's probably not the best thing for customers to actually look at. Just to bring it, well, being selfish, looking at the equipment side, for us it's more about ISO standards. So it's very useful running a company full of engineers to conform to ISO standards because everybody understands what they are. So as well as the ISO standard for safe manufacture, we pretty much just comply with the sustainability ISO. And that's obviously comfort for both us and our end customers. So quite simple for us, really.
Yeah, and I guess from Jiffy's perspective, I would just add, I mean, the certifications, there's a lot of them, and several of them have been really helpful for us because there's so much material on the market, and it's hard for growers, sort of our customers, and then even consumers to know where that material is coming from, how it's been treated, and so we've prioritized several to really make sure our product is of the highest quality. But I think it's also really important to then educate consumers about those certifications, right? Because there's so many out there, and many of us who are far from it have no idea, you know, what they mean, what they entail, and so increasing awareness and education of those, I think, is critical to communicating sustainability, so that it's not just some mark that we share, but we're actually telling a story of what that means and how it impacts our organization. We talked a little bit earlier about, you know, our own suppliers and partners within our organizations. How do you feel you focus on managing sustainability from a partner perspective, not just you as an organization to your main customer, but also within input suppliers and other collaborators that you have?
Well, this is something that we're actually super focused on right now because, as I said, our main model is licensing our designs and our patents to manufacturing partners. So people who might install big greenhouses, big polytunnels, or big vertical farms. So that's fantastic from a business perspective. It means we can be a really lean team. It means that we technically don't have too much emissions ourselves, but it also means we're almost voiding control of that supply chain to someone else. So being an impact and ethics-led organization, how do we build that control into our supply chain is pretty critical. We kind of tend to do that through obviously specifying certain standards for our supply chain that are written into those license agreements. Similarly, we kind of work with the partners almost through the design phase by specifying what are the input materials that actually are required to make this work in compliance with our original designs. Obviously, you could use a different plastic, but that arguably takes you out of specifications. So that's one exercise in control. The other one is actually we retain the decision to basically specify contract manufacturer or the atomizers ourselves. That's where a lot of our intellectual property is, and arguably it's where the most damage could be done from an environmental perspective. So we've kind of taken that view to make sure that, no, we're going to do that bit definitely right. We're going to do that for at least 4 to 5 years, I expect, and then maybe in the future, if we get equal confidence in that, we would license that as well. But I guess that's how we're playing it through our supply chain, and it just involves lots of conversations and lots of paperwork more than anything.
Yeah, when it comes to ingoing material, Swegreen has full control of the manufacturing of the machinery that we use. We design them ourselves and choose our partners, and we have as a criteria that everything should last at least 30 years. Except LED lights, but they degrade in about 7. Yeah. So basically, other ingoing materials, a good example is the substrates that we use. As an example, now we use rock wool because it simply just works and it's super easy to work, but it's not biodegradable. So for the last 3-4 years, we've been actively searching the market for some biodegradable material that actually would hold a transplant after a couple of weeks. So the plug must be rigid, and also that it should be biodegradable and look appealing, since we sell or produce with still the roots and the substrate that goes straight into the package. So when there is an opportunity in the market, I think we work together with 3 different companies now to actually develop this substrate, but we're not there yet. So
as you said, we have to educate our suppliers or to push our suppliers, for example, transportation. We have to push them to improve themselves. I have an example of how we educate a supplier of us. We had to make a sustainable packaging solution for tomatoes and cucumbers. And we work with them, and finally we found a very nice packaging solution, fully recyclable paper without plastic, and an rPET lid, which was a unique design, let's say, for that kind of product, of tomato. And that was very sustainable. And when we saw the figures after the LCA, we saw that we improve ourselves in our analysis.
So we talked a little bit about, we'll get into, I'll ask a question about metrics in a little bit, but another topic that I think has been really important within CA in the industry is this term greenwashing that we hear a lot, and really putting numbers out there that aren't supported by several of the components that we've talked about. What do you feel like are ways that our industry can kind of push back and prevent greenwashing and really support more fact-based information?
So I think one of the key things is most of the greenwashing that I've seen has been driven by companies trying to raise investment, basically. And there's pretty much no regulation on what you can say to an investor from a greenhouse and sustainability perspective that I know of. Whereas actually, I would argue the things that actually matter are what you say to your customers and your end customers. So I think probably a lot less shouting about investment-linked metrics on sustainability and actual reporting of carbon and other impact factors to members of the supply chain, where it actually matters, is for me most important. Certainly in aligning incentive structures.
The greenwashing it's really big out there. Every day on LinkedIn or some of the social media, you see unbiased information coming in, and metrics being used like 95% water savings, and I mean, compared to what? My grandmother's rose garden or what? But something that could prevent this is actually if we have, I know there's organizations out there working really hard in defining metrics, key performance indicators for produce. And if we could have them labeled on the produce that we sell, and there's something, regulations that tell you that you have to specify on your produce how much you use of energy and so on. That could be a way to getting the metrics known.
And I have to add that right now we have all that certifications, and it's clear because the norms are in detail, and all that figures coming from companies give very clear the the total analysis of our products. At the first time, we had to make some assumptions. When you make assumptions, it is a problem in general. But now, because we are something I didn't mention, the mother company is dealing with plastics. And we are familiar with all that figures and all that procedures, recycling, reuse, 3R. Let's say it is in the mentality of plastics. All that things helps to be clear and to avoid greenwashing.
Could I just jump in here again? So, I guess one of the two things I would pick up there, just to make it actionable, is that absolutely, on a regulation standpoint, carbon labeling or water labeling is probably the best way to affect systemic change within our industry, because I would say actually most growers are quite good on related to other industries in terms of the carbon impact of what we do. There's not many things draw carbon out of the atmosphere whilst they're growing, right? So that will be affect systemic change. But what I would say as an industry we can do is, we're in a hall full of technologists. What's incredibly hard to do at the moment is to do reporting without spending loads of money. So software solutions, data collection solutions that make it very easy to collect carbon reporting data, in my view, will be required to actually make this possible. I think if you turned around to most growers right now and said you need to report all your carbon impact data, you'd see more tractors on the roads. So we need to make this easy from a technological perspective. And then I think you're ready to have that carbon labeling and systemic change.
In a way, I could really understand why we have all this greenwashing, because everybody wants to look good. And more often than you could know, it's actually the marketing companies that try to make a produce look as good as it could. And there might be a lack of knowledge that spreads these numbers. They don't know how to express themselves. So it might not be intentional.
Yeah, no, and I think it always comes from a good place of intentionality, but again, it's just having standards that we can all speak the same language is a challenge, and I think I'll make a plug for the CEA Alliance has been working really hard to try and establish a set of guidelines for key performance indicators across our industry to promote sustainability and keep us all sort of speaking the same language. And so looking forward to that. There's going to be a period for stakeholders to give input on that in the future, and so it'll be really beneficial to hear from more of the industry and get more input on that. I think we're running a little short on time. I'm happy to open it up for questions. If anyone in the audience has questions for the panelists or questions in general that you have related to sustainability, would love to hear some of those from you all, if there's anything. No, nothing interesting. Yeah.
Shocked into silence.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess we can maybe just wrap up and just share a little bit of insights of what the kind of biggest opportunities you feel like are within CA, within sustainability, and sort of what you see for the future.
Well, personally, I think actually water is probably one of the biggest ones for our industry. But I think when you're getting into a world of pretty unpredictable rainfall patterns, the impact for controlled environment agriculture to operate at very high levels of water efficiency is arguably our biggest selling point looking forwards 50 years. I think you are going to see carbon labeling and water labeling being brought in, or at least reported much more effectively up a supply chain. So all of us as operators, growers, technologists, I think are sitting on a huge competitive advantage, and we just need to keep focused on that, make sure that we are improving practices and making sure we're ready to be there when that really kicks in.
Yeah, I agree. Water savings is super important, but as an indoor grower, where you recycle all the evaporative from the plants and have recirculating nutrient system, I think we have come so close to what's physically possible. So for us as indoor growers, it's electricity use. How to construct something that takes less energy, and the climate system is something that we put loads of effort, hours and hours of research, and trying to actually use the physics to transport energy to the point where it's needed. To dehumidify, they evaporate, you need energy, but then you cool down the air, so you need to heat it. So you need to construct machines that actually are so energy efficient that that's physically possible. So that's a challenge for us.
Well, I agree that we are growers, and maybe we are expecting something from artificial intelligence to help us, because the climate change, it's a big change from now on. In Greece, we realized that the temperatures are too high. Last year, it was more than 30 degrees during night. And if you are a grower, you realize what means to have plants in 30 degrees, not relaxing and stressed for more than 20 days. So we're expecting the technology to help us and to improve our crops and our impact to the environment.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Hope you all can just give a round of applause to all of our panelists, and a lot of great work being done in sustainability within CEA, a lot to go, but I think collaborative partnerships are really what's going to help drive our industry and keep us all moving forward into the big goals that we have. So thank you again, and I think we'll be around for a few minutes to chat and answer any additional questions that you all might have. Thank you.